In 1956, in the city of Chicago, an old man named Leonard Burling owned a modest clothing shop. Leonard was originally from England and had moved to the United States a few years earlier. Before coming to Chicago, he had spent years working at one of the finest tailoring shops in London. For personal reasons, he left that life behind and started fresh in America. Once settled, Leonard opened his own shop and hired a young woman named Mabel Shawn as his assistant. Over time, his garments gained a strong reputation across Chicago. Many wealthy families became regular customers, impressed by his craftsmanship. One such family was the Boyles. They were not only wealthy but also one of the most powerful mafia groups in the city. The Boyles often visited Leonard's shop, not only to order suits but also to use a private mailbox placed inside. Leonard had set this up so clients could leave tips or discreet messages without drawing attention. And that's how it all began with the outfit. One evening, Richie Boyle, the only son of the Boyle family, arrived at the shop with Francis, his father's trusted man, to collect letters from their contacts. Leonard, as usual, kept to his work and ignored the Boyle family's business. While sorting through the mail, Francis found a letter from a mafia group known as the Outfit. Realizing its importance, Richie asked Leonard to step outside, making it clear the message was private. As Leonard stepped into the lobby, Mabel approached him with a snow globe she said was a gift from an acquaintance. She explained her love for collecting snow globes of landmarks like the Eiffel Tower, Big Ben, and Barcelona, because she dreamed of traveling the world. Curious, she asked Leonard why he had chosen Chicago instead of opening a shop in another city. After Richie and Francis left, Leonard shared that the man who worked at the watch shop next door had once asked to be introduced to her. Mabel admitted she was not interested, explaining she was already close to someone else. Leonard assumed she meant Richie, since he had noticed them teasing each other in the past. While folding a linen napkin, Leonard warned her to be careful. He reminded her that Richie was part of the Mafia and often surrounded by violence and weapons. Mabel replied that she knew how dangerous the Boyle family was, but she believed she could handle Richie. She then mentioned she had recently received a raise and planned to save money to fund her dream of traveling. Leonard dismissed the idea and said she would only earn a raise from him once she improved her skills, even with simple tasks like folding napkins. After closing, Mabel went home, while Leonard stayed behind to finish his work. Late that night, he fell asleep at his work table and dreamed about his family and the memory of a blazing fire. The dream was cut short when the shop door creaked open. Leonard woke up to see Mabel and Richie entering, confirming his suspicion of a romantic relationship between them. That night, Richie confided his frustration with Francis. Francis suspected there was a traitor inside the Boyle family, leaking information to a rival mafia group known as La Fontaine. Richie admitted he disliked Francis because his father, Roy Boyle, always trusted Francis more than him. To Richie, Francis was not family but a stranger who had once saved his father's life from 6 bullets. Richie believed his father kept Francis close only out of debt. As Richie spoke, Leonard accidentally dropped something from his hand. The sound made Richie and Mabel aware of his presence. Leonard quickly returned to his desk and pretended to be asleep. Mabel then persuaded Richie to leave, not wanting to disturb Leonard's rest. A few days later, Richie and Francis returned to Leonard's shop to collect letters, as they did every week. That evening, they found another envelope from the Outfit, containing a letter and a cassette tape. They quickly left to report it to Mr. Roy. Later that same night, they rushed back to the shop. Francis carried Richie into the back room, bleeding from a gunshot wound to the stomach. Francis called Mr. Roy and explained that La Fontaine's men had ambushed them. He said they were hiding in Leonard's shop, and Mr. Roy promised to come right away. Francis then asked Leonard to stitch Richie's wound. Leonard hesitated at first, saying he had never sewn up a person before. But under pressure, he agreed. Drawing on his limited experience from the war, he stitched the wound without anesthesia. Richie fainted from the pain, but the bleeding stopped. While Richie was unconscious, Francis took the cassette from the suitcase and asked Leonard to look after him. Leonard refused and told Francis to take both Richie and the tape, since he wanted no part in the Boyle family's affairs. Francis insisted they stay, saying the shop was the only safe place for now. He explained he had to leave to find a cassette player. The tape contained a recording from an FBI wiretap, secretly placed on one of the Boyle family members. Francis believed a traitor within the family was working with the FBI. He and Richie had planned to listen to the tape elsewhere, but the ambush ruined their plan. With mafia groups eager to seize the cassette, Francis needed to play it quickly to confirm who the traitor was. After Francis left, Richie slowly regained consciousness. Leonard told him he already knew about the cassette and the search for a traitor. He asked Richie if he suspected anyone, adding that it might even be someone close to the Boyles but not officially part of the family. Leonard sat down, picked up his fabric, and calmly said that he was the traitor who had been leaking information. Richie froze, then burst into laughter, convinced Leonard was joking. Leonard chuckled with him, then kept sewing. Richie remarked that Leonard could never be a traitor, since he was only a tailor. Leonard corrected him. He said he was not a tailor but a cutter. A tailor used needle and thread, but a cutter was different. A cutter trained for years before being trusted to shape garments. Leonard explained he had apprenticed at one of the finest houses in London, the Row, before opening his own shop. Then he returned to the subject of the traitor and suggested that Francis, so eager to uncover betrayal, might be the one himself. Moments later, Francis returned to Leonard's shop. Before he reached Richie, Leonard quietly whispered that Richie suspected him of being the traitor and that Richie had already opened the suitcase he had left behind. Leonard had said this deliberately to turn them against each other. Influenced by Leonard's words, Richie began questioning Francis. He asked why, during the ambush by LaFontaine's men, only he had been shot while Francis remained unharmed. Francis insisted it was luck and quickly demanded to take the cassette to a player. Richie refused, saying they should wait for his father. Tension rose until the two fought over the cassette. When they discovered the suitcase was empty, both drew their guns. Richie fired first but missed. Francis shot back, hitting Richie in the neck and killing him instantly. Shaken, Francis searched the room, convinced Richie had hidden the cassette. Soon after, Roy and his men arrived at the shop. Seeing the situation, Francis asked Leonard to hide Richie's body and clean the blood. Leonard complied, and by the time Roy entered the room, the floor was spotless. Francis then invented a story, claiming Richie had left with the cassette without telling anyone where he was going. Roy believed him and ordered Francis to find Richie and bring him back. While waiting, Roy sat in Leonard's workroom and began talking. He explained that the outfit was a powerful global mafia with networks in Europe and America. The Boyles had recently been offered an alliance, since they were the only group strong enough to resist LaFontaine. The cassette from the outfit, Roy said, was proof of support, containing an FBI wiretap meant to expose the traitor inside the Boyle family. Leonard asked why Roy was telling him this, since he usually never shared family business. Roy then admitted he suspected Richie was still hiding in the shop. He pointed out that Richie's coat was still inside, and Richie would never leave in winter without it. Convinced Leonard knew more, Roy pulled a gun on him and demanded the truth. Before Leonard could answer, Francis entered, dragging Mabel with him. Fearing Francis might harm her, Leonard quickly spoke up. He explained that Richie had been ashamed after Francis killed 4 of LaFontaine's men while he had not killed anyone. Wanting to prove himself, Richie had returned to LaFontaine's territory to fight back. Leonard added that Richie had asked him to stay quiet, not wanting his father to worry. Roy then asked Francis why he had brought Mabel. Francis said Richie might have gone to her place, since she was his girlfriend. Roy turned to Mabel and demanded to know Richie's location, but she denied knowing anything. Francis interrupted again, claiming he had seen blood on her carpet and suggesting it was Richie's. Losing patience, Roy began using force to make her talk, but Leonard quickly stepped in to calm him. Having once lost his wife and daughter in a fire, Leonard now treated Mabel like his own child and could not bear to see her harmed. Before the tension could escalate further, the phone rang. Leonard answered and said it was Richie, claiming he was hiding from LaFontaine and asking to be picked up at street number 31. Roy and his men immediately rushed out to find him, while Francis chose to stay behind to guard Leonard and Mabel in case Leonard was lying. Once they left, Leonard revealed the truth. He had given that address on purpose, knowing LaFontaine's men would ambush Roy and his crew. Leonard then confessed that the real traitor was Mabel. After starting a relationship with Richie, Mabel had used her position to gather information about the Boyle family. She passed it to LaFontaine in exchange for money. Realizing Francis would eventually discover her, she turned to the FBI, asking them to wiretap and bring down the Boyles. This way, she would stay safe, with the FBI eliminating the Mafia for her. Leonard admitted he had known her plan but allowed it, because he understood her desperate wish to earn money for her dream of traveling the world. He was also the one who hid the cassette to protect her. Not long after, LaFontaine and her men arrived at the shop to pay Mabel in exchange for the recording. Before the meeting, Francis told Leonard and Mabel to signal him once LaFontaine handed over the money, so he could come out of hiding and kill her. When LaFontaine arrived, she gave Mabel the money in return for the cassette. But instead of helping Francis, Leonard and Mabel betrayed him, exposing his hiding place. LaFontaine's men gunned Francis down. After they left, Leonard explained everything to Mabel. He had been the one who placed the cassette into the mailbox under the name of the outfit and delivered it to the Boyles, creating division inside their ranks. The cassette given to LaFontaine had been a fake, replaced with Leonard's own recording. The real tape was still in his possession. He wanted Mabel to hand it to the FBI, ensuring both the Boyles and LaFontaine would be eliminated. Leonard then told her to use the money to finally pursue her dream of traveling. That night, Leonard packed his belongings and set the shop on fire to erase all traces. Suddenly, Francis, still alive, rose and fired at him. The shot only grazed Leonard's arm. In that moment, Leonard revealed his true past. He had once been a mafia man like Francis. Years earlier, he left his boss and moved to London, but the boss's men found him and killed his wife and daughter in a fire. That tragedy had driven him to Chicago, where he tried to start a new life. The film closes with Leonard walking away from the burning shop, ready to begin again. So the moral of the story is don't mix romance, mafia, and snow globes, or you'll end up with stitches, gunfights, and a shop on fire.